Robert Thompson, 58 years old, was sitting alone at his kitchen table on a Sunday morning, drinking his black coffee and staring at the empty chair in front of him, the same chair where his wife Margaret had sat for 30 years of marriage. It had been 2 years since she passed away from cancer, and loneliness was slowly consuming the soul of this gentle man. That day, he made a decision that would change his life forever. He would go to the orphanage and adopt a child. What Robert didn't know was that the 8-year-old girl he would choose wasn't an ordinary child. She harbored a secret that would only be revealed years later, completely transforming both their lives in a way no one could imagine. Robert Thompson was a retired history teacher who had dedicated his life to education and family. For 35 years, he taught at public schools in Chicago, always known by students as the most caring and patient teacher in the institution. He and Margaret met in college and built a simple life, but filled with love. They never managed to have children. After years of trying and several unsuccessful treatments, they accepted it would just be the two of them. Margaret used to say, "Robert, maybe our children are all those students you teach with so much care. The house where they lived was modest, a 2-story construction in a quiet neighborhood with a garden that Margaret tended with dedication. After her death, Robert kept everything exactly as she left it. The plants were watered religiously, the pictures remained in the same places, even Margaret's favorite mug stayed in the same spot in the cabinet. Robert was a man of simple routines. He woke up at 6 a.m., made coffee, read the newspaper, tended the garden, had lunch watching the news, and spent afternoons reading or grading papers for teacher friends who asked for his help. But the silent house was becoming an increasingly heavy burden. The idea of adoption came up during a conversation with Dr. Williams, his doctor and longtime friend, during a routine checkup. "Robert," Dr. Williams said, "you need to start living. Again. Margaret wouldn't want to see you wasting away like this." "Doctor, I try, but the house is too empty. Sometimes I talk to myself just to hear a voice." "Have you thought about adopting a child? You've always been wonderful with children. It would be a way to honor Margaret's memory and give someone a new chance." At first, Robert thought the idea was absurd. He was almost 60 years old, alone, had no practical experience raising children. But the seed had been planted. During the following weeks, Robert couldn't stop thinking about the suggestion. He began observing children on the street, remembering his former students, imagining what it would be like to have a life with purpose again. A month later, Robert was standing at the door of Sunshine Children's Home, the oldest orphanage in the region. Sunshine Children's Home had been operating for over 40 years in an old mansion adapted to receive children in vulnerable situations. Sister Mary, 65 years old, ran the institution with a firm hand but generous heart. "Mr. Thompson," Sister Mary said after hearing his story, "adoption is an act of love, but also an enormous responsibility. Are you sure?" "Sister, I spent my life teaching children. Maybe it's time to learn from one." Sister Mary smiled. She had a sharp instinct for identifying sincere people, and Robert radiated genuine kindness. "We have 23 children here, ages between 3 and 15. I'll introduce you to some, but remember, sometimes we don't choose the child, but they choose us." The orphanage was clean and organized, but had that air of sadness that only institutions can have. Children ran through the corridors, played in the courtyard, studied in the improvised classroom. But Robert noticed in each of their eyes the same expression, hope mixed with fear of another disappointment. Robert spent the entire morning talking with various children. He met Tommy, 10 years old, smart and playful. He talked with Sarah, 6 years old, shy but affectionate. He played with Michael, 12 years old, who dreamed of being a soccer player. They were all wonderful children, but none made his heart beat faster. Robert began questioning whether he was making the right decision. That's when Sister Mary took him to the improvised library of the orphanage. "There's a child you haven't met yet. Emily is 8 years old, has been here for 3 years. She's a very special girl, but what? She's extremely intelligent, almost different. Sometimes she worries the other children with knowledge she shouldn't have at her age. She reads university books like they were children's stories." Robert became intrigued. When they entered the library, they saw a small girl, brown curly hair, sitting on the floor reading a thick book. "Emily," Sister Mary called, "I want to introduce Mr. Thompson." The girl looked up from the book, and Robert felt something inexplicable. Those brown eyes had an uncommon depth for an 8-year-old child. It was as if she could see through people. "Hello," Emily said simply, but with impressive maturity. "Hi, Emily. What book are you reading?" Emily showed the cover. "History of Roman Civilization. It's very interesting how they managed to build such a vast empire with the limited resources of that time." Robert was stunned. This 8-year-old girl was discussing Roman history with the naturalness of someone talking about the weather. "Do you like history?" "I like everything. History, mathematics, sciences, philosophy. Sister Mary says I read too much for my age, but books are my friends." Robert sat on the floor next to her. "You know, I was a history teacher. Maybe we can talk about the Romans." What followed was a 2-hour conversation. Emily not only knew Roman history, but made connections and analyses that would impress university students. Robert completely forgot he was talking with an 8-year-old child. During that conversation, Robert discovered that Emily had arrived at the orphanage at age 5, found wandering alone on the streets with no memory of her family or past. There were no records, documents, nothing indicating her origin. "Emily, do you remember anything from before arriving here?" The girl was thoughtful for a few moments. "Sometimes I have dreams, or memories I don't know. I remember a woman with white hair who taught me things, but I can't see her face clearly." "What kind of things did she teach you?" "Numbers, languages, stories about distant countries. She spoke several languages and I understood them all." Robert found it curious, but attributed it to childhood imagination. When it was time to leave, Robert said goodbye to Emily with regret. There was something about that child that had touched him deeply. "Mr. Thompson," Emily said when he got up to leave, "are you coming back?" "Why do you ask?" "Because you seem sad, like me. Sad people should stay together." Robert felt his eyes welling up. At that moment, he knew he had found his daughter. Robert returned to the orphanage the next day to communicate his decision to Sister Mary. "I want to adopt Emily." Sister Mary showed no surprise. "I imagined you'd say that. Emily also asked about you several times since yesterday." The adoption process began immediately, since Robert was an exemplary citizen, retired teacher with no criminal record, owned home, financial stability. The procedures went faster than normal. During the 4 weeks the process lasted, Robert visited Emily every day. They talked about history, literature, sciences. Emily absorbed knowledge with astonishing speed and asked questions that sometimes left Robert without answers. "Robert," Emily asked one day, "why do people die?" "It's a natural cycle of life." "Emily, we're born, we live, and then we pass on." "But where do we go when we die?" "Each person believes in something different. Some believe in heaven, others in reincarnation, others that we simply cease to exist." Emily was thoughtful. "I think we don't really die. I think we just change form." Robert found the answer too profound for an 8-year-old child, but was getting used to Emily's uncommon maturity. Finally, Robert was able to take Emily home. He had prepared the former study as her room, buying new furniture and decorating with care. When Emily entered the house, her reaction was unexpected. She stopped in the living room and looked around with a nostalgic smile. "It's a happy house," she said. "I can feel that many laughs happened here." Robert was moved. It was true. That house had been full of joy during the years with Margaret. How? "Can you feel that?" Emily shrugged. "I don't know how to explain, I just feel it." The first months of living together were a constant discovery. Emily was an adorable child, polite, caring, but definitely extraordinary. She learned the house routine in a few days, helped with household tasks without being asked, and demonstrated impressive emotional maturity. At school, Emily caused a sensation. In 1 week, she had surpassed the entire class in all subjects. The principal called Robert for a conversation. "Mr. Thompson, Emily is exceptional. I believe she should take an evaluation to skip some grades. You think so? She's solving high school math problems and writing essays at university level. I've never seen anything like it." At 10 years old, Emily had already skipped 3 grades and was in freshman year of high school. Robert had to enroll her in a specialized school for gifted children. At 12 years old, Emily spoke fluently English, French, Spanish, Italian, and was learning Mandarin and Arabic as a hobby. At 14 years old, Emily was accepted at a federal university to study physics, having taken the entrance exam just to test her knowledge. Robert was proud, but also worried. Emily was too extraordinary, and he began to suspect there was something beyond simple giftedness. "Emily," he asked one night, "do you remember anything else about your past?" Emily, now a 16-year-old teenager studying third-year physics, was thoughtful. "Dad, I have some strange memories. Sometimes I dream about laboratories, people in white coats, machines that shouldn't exist." "What kind of machines?" "I can't explain. Very advanced computers, equipment that seemed futuristic, and always that white-haired woman teaching me things." Robert began to suspect that Emily's origin was more complex than he imagined. When Emily turned 18, she was graduating in physics, with specialization in quantum physics, being the youngest person in university history to achieve such a feat. It was during the graduation ceremony that everything changed. Among those present, Robert noticed an elegant woman with graying hair who observed Emily with special attention. When the ceremony ended, the woman approached. "Excuse me," she said with an accent Robert couldn't identify. "May I speak with you?" The woman was about 70 years old, dressed sophisticatedly, and there was something in her eyes that reminded Robert of someone. "My name is Dr. Elizabeth Mitchell. I need to speak with Emily urgently." Emily, who was talking with classmates, turned when she heard the name. When she saw the woman, her face paled. "Professor Elizabeth," Emily murmured, as if seeing a ghost. "Hello. My dear, I finally found you." Dr. Elizabeth asked to speak with Robert and Emily privately. They went to a cafe near the university, where the most incredible revelation of Robert's life would happen. "Robert," Dr. Elizabeth began, "you adopted a very special child, more special than you can imagine." "What do you mean?" Dr. Elizabeth looked at Emily. "Dear, do you remember Project Aurora?" Emily's eyes widened. "Project Aurora. Some memories are starting to come back." "Project Aurora?" Robert asked, confused. Dr. Elizabeth took a deep breath. "Robert, Emily isn't an ordinary child. She's the result of an ultra-secret scientific project I developed for 15 years. "What kind of project?" "Emily is the first genetically modified child to have exponentially superior intelligence. Her DNA was altered at the embryonic stage to enhance brain capacity, memory, learning speed, and various other cognitive functions." Robert felt the world spinning. "That's impossible." "Unfortunately, it's not. Emily was created in a laboratory, developed for 2 years in a controlled environment, and then educated by me and my team until she was 5 years old." Emily was silent, memories gradually returning. "But how did she end up at the orphanage?" Dr. Elizabeth continued the explanation. Project Aurora was funded by an international consortium of governments who wanted to create intellectual super soldiers. When I realized the ethical implications of what we were doing, I tried to stop the project. And there was an internal conflict. Some wanted to continue, others wanted to destroy all evidence, including Emily. I couldn't allow them to hurt her. Emily finally spoke. "You took me from the laboratory." "Yes, my dear. One night I erased all project files, destroyed the genetic data, and fled with you. But during the escape, we were separated. You disappeared, and I spent years looking for you." Robert was in shock. "So Emily is a genetically modified human being to have superior cognitive abilities. She's not an experiment. She's a child who was altered before even being born. But she's your daughter as much as she would be if she were biological." Emily looked at Robert. "Dad, does this change anything between us?" Robert held Emily's hand. "It doesn't change anything. You're my daughter no matter how you came to me." Dr. Elizabeth explained that she had spent recent years hiding, fearing retaliation from project funders who still wanted to recover Emily. They know she exists, but don't know where she is. When they learned she was graduating in physics at 18, they started investigating. "Are we in danger?" Robert asked. "Possibly. They see her as valuable intellectual property." Emily, who had remained thoughtful, said, "Dr. Elizabeth, are there others like me? You were the only one who survived. There were other attempts, but you were the only complete success." The revelation that Emily was unique in the world brought even greater responsibility. In the following days, Robert, Emily, and Dr. Elizabeth met several times to decide what to do. "I can use my intelligence to help humanity," Emily said. "Maybe. That was always my purpose. But you'll have to live always looking over your shoulder," Robert argued. Dr. Elizabeth proposed a solution. "I have contacts at international universities that can offer protection and resources for Emily to develop. Research that benefits humanity, away from those who want to use her." Emily looked at Robert. "Dad, what do you think?" Robert thought about the 8-year-old girl he met at the orphanage, the daughter he raised with love for 10 years, the brilliant young woman she was becoming. "Emily, you're no longer that lost child I found. You've grown, become an incredible woman. The decision is yours." Emily chose to accept a research scholarship at a Swiss university where she could work on clean energy projects under international protection. "But Dad," she said, "I want you to come with me. I can't leave the man who saved me and gave me a family." Robert, now 68 years old, agreed to accompany Emily on the new journey. Before leaving, Emily insisted on visiting Sunshine Children's Home one last time. "Sister Mary," Emily said, "I want to create a study fund for the children here. My research will generate patents, and part of the profits should come here." Sister Mary cried with emotion. "Emily, you were always special. Now I understand why." In Switzerland, Emily had become one of the world's most respected scientists, developing revolutionary clean energy technologies that promised to change humanity's future. Robert, now 73 years old, lived a quiet life as father of the world's most famous scientist, helping Emily in her research with his experience in history and humanities. "Dad," Emily said one afternoon as they walked through the Alps, "do you ever regret adopting me?" Emily: "You were the best gift life gave me. Margaret always said our children would be special. She didn't know how much." Emily smiled. "Maybe she knew. Sometimes I feel like someone planned our meeting. Maybe it was planned. Destiny has its ways." Emily's research revolutionized clean energy production, solving the world energy crisis. She never publicly revealed her origin, maintaining herself. Just as a brilliant scientist, the Emily Robert Thompson Fund, she insisted on including her father's name, had benefited over 1,000 orphaned children in America, offering quality education and opportunities. Dr. Elizabeth, now 75 years old, worked as an ethics advisor in Emily's laboratory, ensuring science was always used for good. Robert wrote a book about his experience, My Daughter from the Stars, which became a worldwide bestseller, although he changed names and details to protect Emily's identity. In an interview years later, Robert was asked about what he learned from this extraordinary experience. I learned that love has no limits or definitions. Emily may have come from a laboratory, but she's my daughter the same way she would be if she had been born from Margaret and me. What makes us family isn't blood or genetics. It's love, care, mutual dedication. And about her special origin? Emily is special not because she was genetically modified, but because she has a kind heart. Intelligence is just a tool. What matters is how she uses that tool to help others. Emily, who was present at the interview, added, "My father taught me that being different isn't a curse or a blessing. It's a responsibility. And I use my difference to try to make the world a little better." Robert, at 78 years old, died peacefully in his sleep on a spring morning in Switzerland. Emily was holding his hand. At the funeral, scientists from around the world attended, but also hundreds of children benefited by the funds she created. Emily, now 28 years old and recognized as one of the brightest minds in history, gave an emotional speech. Robert Thompson wasn't just my adoptive father. He was the man who taught me that true intelligence lies in the ability to love without conditions. He took a lost child and transformed her into a person who wants to change the world. That's the greatest scientific achievement I know. After the funeral, Emily returned to America to inaugurate the Robert Thompson Institute, dedicated to educating gifted and orphaned children. "Dad," she said before his grave, "I promise to continue planting love as you taught me. Thank you for showing me that life's greatest experiment is the family we choose to build." And so, the story of the lonely widower who adopted a special girl became a legend about how love can transform even the most extraordinary experiments into something simply human. So what did you think of this incredible story about how love can overcome any origin or circumstance? Did Robert make the right choice in adopting Emily, even after discovering her extraordinary origin? Leave your opinion in the comments, and always remember, family isn't defined by blood or genetics, but by the love, care, and dedication we offer each other. Sometimes the most special people come to us in unexpected ways, and our only responsibility is to love them unconditionally. True intelligence isn't just in what we know, but in how we use our knowledge to do good and build bonds of genuine love. If you liked this emotional story about family, love, and overcoming challenges, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our heartwarming stories. And hit that notification bell to be the first to watch. See you in the next story.